Connecting the Dots with Dr. Wilmer Leon, where the analysis of politics, culture, and history converge.
Good morning. And as most of you know by now, this coming Tuesday, November 5th, will be, as the Constitution states, the Tuesday next after the first Monday in November is Election Day. What are you all going to do? Are you going to vote? Are you going to abstain? If you decide to vote, who are you going to cast your ballot for? Let's talk, and let's talk live. We're live today. I want to welcome you all to the Connecting the Dots podcast with me. I am Dr. Wilmer Leon, and here's the point. We have a tendency to view current events as though they occur in a vacuum, failing to understand the broader historic context in which most events take place. During each episode, my guests and I have probing, provocative, and in-depth discussions that connect the dots between these events and the broader historic contexts in which they occur, thus enabling you to better understand and analyze the events that impact the global village in which we live. On today's episode, it's just me. It's moi. No guests. I'm live today. And I know this is very, very short notice, but here we are. So the issues, or the issue before us is or are this Tuesday, as I said in the tease, November 5th will be, as the Constitution states, the Tuesday next after the first Monday in November is Election Day. Folks, what are y'all going to do? Are you going to vote, or are you going to abstain? If you decide to vote, who are you going to cast your ballots for? And for me, here's the real important, salient question. Why? Vote or abstain? I strongly suggest voting. I don't think that you can abdicate your duty as a citizen and sit this one out. And I firmly believe that the primary responsibility of a citizen is to participate in the electoral process to determine who you select to represent your interests in government. Folks, I believe America is recklessly muddling its way through these incredibly perilous times, very, very recklessly. As America muddles its way through these perilous times, there are too many Americans that appear to be more confused than ever. Many of us have traded our interests in for electability or anybody but Trump. Former NAACP board chairman Julian Bond told us that in the African American community, we have no permanent friends, we have no permanent enemies, we have just permanent interests. Malcolm called them permanent agendas. And as we look at this whole issue of America muddling its way through these perilous times, I think it's very, very important for us to understand what this really means and who is responsible for the peril that we find ourselves in. Many of you all may take exception to what I'm about to say, but I think the data supports this position. The American empire is on the wane. It is failing. Some will say it has already failed, and what we are experiencing are the last kicks of a dying mule. I think the African proverb says the last kicks of a dying mule are or can be the most dangerous. The United States started this war in Ukraine. The United States is backing the genocide that we see playing itself out right before our very eyes in the Zionist colony known as Israel. The United States is trying to provoke a fight with Venezuela by not recognizing the democratically elected president, Nicolas Maduro, as the president of Venezuela. The United States is trying to start a fight with China over Taiwan. So that's why I say that we are in incredibly, incredibly perilous times, and most of this peril is at our own doing. And I see Sister Sandra Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in. Greatly, greatly appreciate it. So again, incredibly reckless. Too many of us are confused more than ever. Again, many of us have traded in our interests for this concept of electability and anybody but Trump. Well, we have to ask ourselves, what are our politics really all about? And this question not only applies to those of us in the African American community, but it applies to the country overall. Candidates right now are out on the campaign trail asking us for our vote. But what are they offering us? Even more important than that, even more important than what are they offering, what are we as citizens demanding from them? For the most part, I'm hearing racist diatribes of I'm hearing racist diatribes. I'm hearing offers of higher taxes that are really masking themselves as tariffs on imported goods. I'm hearing anti-immigrant rhetoric, and I'm hearing a lot of ideas being floated as policy. They sound great, but they'll meet stiff opposition if they make their way to Congress. Let me just quickly jump back to the anti-immigrant rhetoric, because both sides, from the Trump campaign as well as from the Harris campaign, there's a whole lot of clamoring. There's a whole lot of chatter that we're hearing regarding the border, immigration. Oh, our country's being overrun by immigrants. Trump tells you they're eating our pets, and Vice President Harris talks about building the wall, funding for more border agents, all of this stuff about keeping people out. What I don't hear anybody talking about, I don't hear anybody asking the question, why are these people trying to come in the first place? Why are Mexicans trying to cross the border? Why are people from Honduras? Why are people from Guatemala risking life and limb, spending thousands of dollars that they've spent years saving, trying to come across this border? I don't hear anybody asking that question. Donald Trump and J.D. Vance made this horrifically racist, unsupportable, false accusation that Haitian immigrants, who, by the way, are in Springfield, Ohio legally, who, by the way, salvaged the economy of Springfield, Ohio. Nobody's asking the question, why are Haitians there in the first place? And nobody talks about American foreign policy. Do you think Mexicans just want to come to the United States because they woke up last week and said, you know what? I think I'm going to risk life and limb and go to the United States. Do you think Guatemalans? Do you think Hondurans? Do you think El Salvadorians are saying to themselves, you know what? I ain't got nothing else better to do. I'm going to pay some mule $3,000 that it took me 5 years to save, to risk life and limb to try to sneak into the United States, only to run the risk of being deported and wasting all that money. Do you think that maybe they're making these decisions because their economies have been decimated by American foreign policy, and they're coming here? So you don't hear the immigration czar, as Donald Trump loves to call Vice President Harris. You don't hear her talking about that. You don't hear Donald Trump talking about that. They talk about failed solutions, such as building the wall and all that other foolishness. They don't talk about the real crux of the problem, which is American foreign policy in their countries. What happened with Mexican corn? Well, it got decimated because of NAFTA importing American yellow corn into Mexico, and that brown multicolored Mexican indigenous corn got decimated through cross pollination by the American yellow corn that was imported because of NAFTA, decimating agriculture in Mexico. So what are those farmers to do? Nobody's offered them any assistance. What are those farmers to do? Chiquita Brands, about a month ago, was convicted in federal court in Florida for funding death squads in Colombia. Chiquita Brands now has to pay millions of dollars to families in Colombia because they were backing death squads in Colombia. So if you're a Colombian, what are you to do? Stay in your native country, running the risk of being murdered by death squads funded by Chiquita Brands, or do everything in your power to get out of Colombia and go someplace else? And where is that someplace else? The United States. As Donald Trump is using these, I see you, Steve. I'm getting to Haiti right now. Steve, stay out of my head, man. Stay out of my head, Steve. I'm getting to Haiti right now. As Donald Trump and J.D. Vance are extolling these racist diatribes about Haitians eating dogs and cats, Steve, here we go. Nobody's asking, why are the Haitians in Springfield, Ohio in the first place? Nobody's asking, why'd they leave Haiti and come to the United States? They should be sitting on the island drinking Barbancourt 5-star rum and eating griot. No, they've left their lovely country, come to the United States. Why? Here's the answer. As during the debate, you saw Vice President Harris wringing her hands and contorting her face and showing the utter disgust for that racist diatribe that she should have shown. But nobody asked her, Vice President Harris, why did you go to CARICOM last year and try to convince the leaders of CARICOM, the Organization of Caribbean States, to be the tip of the United States spear as the United States is trying to reinvade Haiti, recolonize Haiti? Nobody asked her that question. And I think that's a very, very important question to ask. I call that minstrel diplomacy. Black faces on Euro-American foreign policy. Minstrel diplomacy. Nobody asked Hakeem Jeffries, Congressman Jeffries, why did you go as a black man? Why did you go to CARICOM with Vice President Harris, a black woman, to convince black countries to invade another black country? Nobody's asking that question. So it's not simply building a wall. It's not simply enforcing the border. It's not simply funding for more border agents. It's not simply building internment camps to house these individuals and their children. It's not simply deporting people. And by the way, I think former President Barack Obama deported more people than anybody in like the last 50 years. It's about American foreign policy decimating the economies of Mexican, Central American, and South American countries. That's why these individuals are doing everything in their power to come to this country. Now, really quickly, it's also a matter of going back to Haiti. Why such a focus on Haiti? A couple of reasons. One is geographic. The United States has been trying, I think, for about 100 or so years to build a naval base in Haiti. And it has met incredible resistance by Haitians. Why does the United States want to build that naval base? In anticipation of China gaining a greater foothold in the region. China right now is talking about building a canal, I believe it's through Honduras, building a canal through Honduras, and which would make it easier for Chinese ships to circumnavigate the globe. And that would also be a direct challenge to the Panama Canal. So you have a number of geopolitical aspects to this. As the United States further alienates China, the United States is anticipating the need to replace that cheap Chinese labor with another cheap labor source. And where are they thinking of getting that labor? Haiti. So those are just two very current examples of why the United States is so focused on recolonizing Haiti. Of course, we can go back to the overarching issue of the Haitian Revolution, the successful Haitian Revolution, Haiti throwing out France as a result of the Haitian Revolution, and the belief that no European country will consider the United States, because it's founded by Europeans, would ever allow the successful revolution of a black country. So that's also part of this calculus as well. Those are just a couple of examples of what I'm talking about in terms of these politics and permanent friends, permanent enemies, and permanent interests. Again, candidates, they're asking us for our vote, but what in fact are they offering us? And again, more important than that is, what are we demanding from them? Where are the substantive policies that are focused on making the lives of each American better? Where's the plan to fund them and to get these ideas turned into legislation, submitted, brought before Congress, passed by Congress, and signed by the president? There are a lot of ideas being floated out there, but one of the things I'm not hearing, particularly from the Harris campaign, is how are you going to get this stuff funded? Where's the money going to come from? Anyway, by failing to develop, understand, and articulate our permanent interests, our agendas, we then fall victim to the problem of what I call binary politics, the simplistic either or scenario. Yes, this is a two-party system, but being stuck in the mindset of binary politics, the simplistic either or scenario continues to leave us with simplistic and deadly choices of the status quo. Do you want lead in your drinking water or mercury? Do you want arsenic on your grits? Or, baby, do you want mama to sprinkle a little bit of strychnine on them grits for you? The dangers of binary politics. This rant of anybody but Trump is a perfect example of the dangers of binary politics, especially for the African American community. And please, 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 baby, please, don't get this twisted. Yes, Trump is disgustingly ignorant. He's vile. He's gauche. He's racist. He's an admitted sexual predator and a convicted felon. However, following the simplistic narrative of anybody but Trump as the basis of your analysis will not ipso facto lead you to a better alternative. As Sporting Life said in Porgy and Bess, it ain't necessarily so. Folks, I unapologetically see the world through, we're doing live radio, so I got to every now and then check my messages here to be sure that I'm staying on course, staying on track. Okay. So anyway, folks, I unapologetically see the world through the lens of an African-American man, and I focus on the interests of the African-American community. But my analysis applies to every demographic across the board. Let me pause here and just say, Steve, you're right. We're talking about Haiti. Sandra, you said you don't know. It looks as though folks would rather remain in ignorant about many issues the Western individualism value. Oh, you're absolutely right, Sandra. You're absolutely right about that. And that really gets to the crux of my point. And as I talked about the decline of the empire, this is Western. This is all part of that Western individualist value. And by the way, which is a conservative construct. And Sandra, help me out here if I'm on track with this, is that too many of us in the African American community have bought into this whole idea of I've got mine, now you have to get yours. We have lost track of the power of the collective. We have lost track of how we as a community, as we as African Americans with a distinct history, with a distinct culture, have been able to make it through the challenges that have been imposed upon us by the dominant culture. Look, I say this all the time. Du Bois wrote The Souls of Black Folk, not the soul of some guy. Mrs. Hamer dedicated her life championing the right for us to vote. She did not dedicate her life simply so that she could vote. And now what too many of us are looking at, what too many of us are confused about and confused by, is the progress of some at the expense of the many. I got mine, you got to get yours. That has never worked for us. It will never work for us. And then there are too many of us like Richardson down in North Carolina, and who's the brother that from Florida that appeared at that Trump Race Fest 2024 in New York? He comes on stage after the dude before him played Dixie. played what's his name? I'm drawing a blank on a guy that sang it. But what kind of coonery was that? A black man gonna come on stage, Elvis Presley, after a white cat before him, his bumper music was Dixie. And instead of coming to the mic saying, oh, hell to the no, Bobby, hell to the no, I'm not going to stand here and follow that racist foolishness, he just goes along buck dancing, cooning, shining. And you know, any of you all that have spent any time listening to me, rarely will I use those types of references when I'm talking about buck dancing coons. But that just shows you the depths and the utter depravity that that our community has fallen into. Global Insight Perspectives, you ask, what do I say to African-American voters who say, if you vote third party, you'll enable Trump to, okay. Global Insight Perspective, great question. I was going to get to that a little later, but let me do that right now. That gets back to my point of the dangers of binary thinking, because right now we're stuck in this duopoly, Republican and Democrat, thinking that there are truly substantive differences between the parties, when in fact it's a duopoly. They are two wings on the same bird. They are two sides of the same coin. The Democrats, to a great degree, they will couch their racism, they'll couch their militarism in slightly softer language. They'll bring black faces to the forefront to sell you that BS. Linda Thomas Greenfield at the UN championing genocide, right? Kamala Harris going to CARICOM, as I mentioned earlier. Hakeem Jeffries going to CARICOM. Who's the head of AFRICOM? It's a black general. Lloyd Austin goes to Kenya, right, to convince William Ruto, the president of Kenya. They show him giving the check to Ruto to invade Haiti on behalf of the United States. So the Democrats, they'll roll out black faces to Barack Obama. They'll roll out black faces to sell you basically the same policies that the Republicans, they just bogart. They go hard in the paint. They go hard in the paint. No easy layups, hard fouls. They don't care. Democrats try to be they try to give you a kinder, softer militarism. And Daniel Drazenovich, Du Bois said race is not biological, it's cultural. Oh, that's very, very true. That's why you don't hear me usually speaking in the context of race. I speak in the context of ethnicity, and I speak in the context of culture, because there is absolutely no biological proof, scientific, empirical data to support the construct of race. Race is a eugenic construct. Now, I was just in London lecturing on this at Oxford and at Westminster universities. Just got back Saturday. Thank you to Dr. Chantella Sherman for putting on that conference. Yeah, race doesn't exist. It just doesn't exist. It exists only in the warped mind of those that have been convinced that race is real. Race is an artificial construct that was created to a great degree by Christians in order to rationalize the dehumanization of enslaved Africans, because they had to figure out, if we consider ourselves to be Christian, then how can we rationalize and justify enslaving other human beings? Oh, here's an idea. We create this construct of race, therefore we can say they are an inferior group of people. And Calvinism played a very, very key part in this, because one of the elements of Calvinism is predestination, predetermination. So they then were able to say, oh, these people were predetermined by God to be inferior and subservient to us, the white European. So that's where the whole construct of race comes from. Daniel, thank you so much for that. Byron Donalds, yes, thank you. Thank you, Cottrell. I think that's, if I pronounce that correctly. Yeah, Byron Donalds is who I was trying to think of. Again, folks, you have never even heard me call Clarence Thomas a coon. But Byron Donald, coon's coon. Anybody that comes on a stage at an event where Dixie was played, I don't care what time in the lineup, you're supposed to come on stage and shut that rascal down. You're supposed to come on stage and quote that brilliant African-American, that late African-American philosopher Whitney Houston, and say, oh, hell to the no, Bobby, hell to the no, we ain't going for this. But anyway, oh, well, Daniel, excellent. Thank you. I appreciate your critique of that analysis. So, okay. So let me try to move a little further here. Again, as I said, I see the world, and unapologetically so, through the lens of an African-American man. And please understand this. My saying that, my being pro-me, do not ever, and this is something that people do all the time, Black Lives Matter was an example of this, never equate my being pro-me with my being anti-you. My being pro-me is me being pro-me. They, well, all lives matter. Yeah, that's true. But if that were a reality in the United States, if all lives in the United States actually mattered, then we wouldn't have to highlight the fact that Black Lives Matter. The reason that Black Lives Mattered was developed was because we saw on our phones, on our television screens, on our computer monitors, Black people being slaughtered in the street. And I'm not even going to say shot down in the street like dogs, because if I went out into the street and shot a dog in the street, I would be immediately arrested. That's why I don't say shot down in the street like dogs, because in many communities, they seem to hold the lives of dogs in higher regard than they do African Americans. So anyway, I see the world through the lens of an African American man. And as a political scientist, I go back to the piece by Mac Jones, A Message to a Black Political Scientist, where he says, as such, it's my obligation to develop a different Weltanschauung, a different worldview, that I view the world through the prism of my experience, historical, current, and personal, as an African-American human being. And that I can never allow my analysis to deviate from that, because that's what is the most relevant to my community. So, vote or abstain. Back to that point. I strongly suggest voting. I don't think that you can abdicate your duty as a citizen and sit this one out. We as American citizens, we can no longer afford to leave the management and governance of this country and system to those that we have elected to represent our interests. And I think that little element, right, that little kernel right there is what unfortunately is being overlooked. And I'll say particularly in the African American community. You know, we keep hearing vote for Kamala, vote for, and I'm not saying vote or don't vote for him or her. That's not, I'm not going to do that. If you want me to, I will tell you who I think is going to win this. I'll get to that in a minute. But I'm not saying vote for him or vote for her, vote for them or not them. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying, though, is that too many of us have been bludgeoned with, you have to vote for her because she's a black woman. If you don't vote for her, you hate black women. You have to vote for her because Donald Trump is the reincarnation of the devil, which by the way, he is. No. I need to know I need her to tell me what she's going to do for me and how she's going to do it. That's all I've been demanding. Kamala, Vice President Harris, tell me I need you to come on up to stage and say, Wilmer, look, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to do it. And this is how we're going to pay for it. I need her to do that. Folks, you can't abdicate your duty as a citizen. You can't sit this one out. At a campaign event this past Thursday evening in Arizona, former President Trump said to Tucker Carlson, quote, Liz Cheney, she's a radical war hawk. Let's put her with a rifle standing there with 9 barrels shooting at her. Okay, let's see how she feels about it. You know, when the guns are trained on her face, you know they're all war hawks when they're sitting in Washington with a nice building, Trump continued. What? He might think that casting that in the light of put a rifle in her hand and train 9 at her face is some kind of military construct. No, Donald, you're not really that smart. We understand that's the context of a firing squad. And no matter how you try to spin that one, that's just disgusting. That's just disgusting. Jarito, we did a show last Saturday talking about my Sirius XM show. Yes, there was a show. It was a best of because I was in London at the time. I will be live tomorrow on Sirius XM 126 from 11 to 2 Eastern. Hopefully that answers your question. Where am I here? So Kamala had an interview on Fox. She was asked about her platform and she didn't know it. She said, go to my website and read it. Well, yeah, that one speaks for itself. That's what I've been saying during the whole campaign is folks need, politics is not about phenotype. Politics is not about skin color. Politics is about policy initiatives, policy output, policy results. I'm a political scientist. Public policy is my primary area. Public policy and black politics are my two. It was supposed to be political economy, but that's a whole nother conversation. That's why I'm so stuck on policy, because that's what I do. That's what I do. Meg, from Baltimore, thank you for joining us. Get me a crab cake, if you wouldn't mind. How do I feel about Dick Cheney supporting Kamala Harris? Carl, how do I feel about Dick Cheney supporting Kamala Harris? let's understand. Now, this is my opinion because I don't have any data to support this point, but this is my opinion, and I think this is fairly accurate. I don't think that Dick Cheney, in the middle of the night, opened his eyes as a light was shining upon him, and a voice of power and majesty filled the room and said, "Dick Cheney, purveyor of evil, war criminal, you must repent and endorse Vice President Harris." And then Dick Cheney pushed back the covers and sat up in the bed and said, "Oh my God, I have been saved." No, didn't happen. I think the Republican elite have come to the realization that the Frankenstein monster that they have created, Donald Trump, is now ravaging and pillaging their village. And they see Kamala Harris as the last-ditched attempt to salvage their party as they've known it to exist. Look, you can go back and find the language from the senator from South Carolina. What's the dude's name? I'm drawing a blank on that. Anyway, who told us that Donald Trump was a racist, narcissistic, xenophobic bigot. The record is replete with examples of Ted Cruz, Lindsey Graham, what's her name from South Carolina, Nikki Haley, all of these Republicans, traditional members of the traditional Republican elite, telling us that Donald Trump is everything but a child of God. They created this monster. You can go back to the Tea Party and one of the founders, Tom Tancredo. Remember Tom Tancredo back in 2020 or 2016 talking about, we want our country back. Tom, who had your country? Tom Tancredo, I don't have your country. I don't know anybody that does. Remember that? I also believe that Sarah Palin being on the ticket with what's his name from Arizona was the precursor to Donald Trump. And Carl, this is a very long way I'm getting to your question. Because she made you comfortable with stupidity. She made you comfortable with ignorance. She made you comfortable, and the you is a generic, general you as the country. She made the country comfortable with an ignorant person being a heartbeat away from being the leader of the free world. She tilled the soil. She laid the groundwork for Donald Trump. And then he came in and just bogarted the whole damn game. So, Carl, getting back to your point, your question. So again, Dick Cheney didn't find Jesus. What Dick Cheney realized is, looking at the policies of the Biden-Harris administration, particularly foreign policy, particularly militarism, because remember where he came from. Let me see if I got the book. Remember where he came. I got it over here somewhere. Oh, wait a minute. Here it is. Sorry. The Shadow World. inside the global arms trade. See if I can quickly. After Cheney left the Defense Department in 1992, his appointment as CEO of Halliburton in 1995 led us to a remarkable improvement in the company's fortunes, especially with regard to federal contracts. In the 5 years prior to his arrival, Halliburton received a paltry 100 million in government credit guarantees. Under Cheney, Halliburton received 15 times that amount, $1.5 billion. Cheney was paid well for his services. For 48 months, he received $45 million from Halliburton. The shadow world, inside the global arms trade, Andrew Feinstein. Okay, so Dick Cheney, again, it wasn't divine intervention. The hand of God didn't touch Cheney on his shoulder. No, he realized backing her. Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney and all those other Republicans that are now on the Harris bandwagon, they're not on that bandwagon because they're coming closer to her. They're on the bandwagon because she has come closer to them. That's my opinion. So hopefully, Carl, that answers your question. Now, is that a good thing or a bad thing? It depends on who your candidate is. But I think that's the reality. Because when you look at Liz Cheney and Kamala Harris on stage, that's not a good vibe. I don't think I've ever seen them embrace. They may have. I haven't seen it. There's a distance between them. And because I don't think personally they really like each other beyond politics. Again, that's my opinion. I could be as wrong as the day is long. Yes, Rampelsense, they are all warmongers and war criminals based upon the International Criminal Court standards. They are all, not only are they warmongers, they are also war criminals. Carl, please listen tomorrow. I think I got a hell of a show for y'all tomorrow. But anyway, who do I think will win the election and why? You know what, Fred? Hold that. I'm gonna get to that in a minute. Because I have an answer for you. But so let me go back to Trump's, what I call the racist hate fest 2024 in Madison Square Garden. This was a 6-hour eugenic, racist, hate-filled rant. And there was one in particular, which I'm sure most of you now are familiar with. This so-called comedian, I'm not even going to mention this guy's name, called Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage. He said, there's a lot going on. I don't know if you know this, but there's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. I think it's called Puerto Rico. Now, there is actually a floating island of garbage in the Pacific Ocean off the coast of Hawaii. Why not talk about that? Why not talk about the impact that there is truly a floating island of garbage off the Pacific, not the Atlantic coast? And it's full of plastics that are decimating the ecology. Fish are now being found to have microparticles of plastics in them. Sea turtles are getting caught up in all kinds. You could have talked about that in terms of a floating island of garbage, but no, you have to take that ecological disaster called a floating island of garbage off the Pacific coast, and you have to turn that into this racist, eugenic diatribe targeted at Puerto Ricans. Well, let me tell you this, homie. Pennsylvania is a swing state. Pennsylvania has 20 electoral votes in the Electoral College. Trump won the state in 2016 by a narrow margin of 0.72%. Biden was able to reclaim the state in 2020, winning it by a similarly narrow 1.17% margin, or about 80,500 votes. See, folks, I use data. When I take a position, when I tell you something, if it's my opinion, I'm going to tell you very clearly, I don't have the data for it. Here's my opinion. When I have the data, I'm going to give you the data. So Biden was able to reclaim Pennsylvania, and he won it with a 1.17% margin, or about 80,500 votes. Pennsylvania's Latino eligible voter population has more than doubled since 2000, from 206,000 to 620,000 in 2023. Now, Biden won with a margin of 80,500 votes in 2020. Now, in 2016, there are 620,000 Latinos, and this is according to Census Bureau figures. And more than half of those voters, about 310,000, are eligible voters who are Puerto Rican. And they are pissed. They are pissed. To the highest of pistivity, they are pissed. That's not good, Mr. So-called funny man, racist funny man. That's not good. You didn't do your boy you didn't do Trump any favors by going down that alleyway, as Richard Pryor would say, because it may not be the voice of God. Here's what's overlooked by a number of people. Too many of us believe that once you've cast your vote, or once you've cast your ballot, that your job is done. But folks, casting your ballot is just the beginning of the process. Once you've cast your ballot, your job isn't done. It's only just begun. You have to stay engaged. You have to hold those you voted for or didn't vote for accountable. You have to stay engaged. You can't abdicate your duty as a citizen and sit this one out. And if you vote, you have to stay engaged. You've got to. Folks, there are many, getting back to the Puerto Rican issue, there are many who will tell you, Dr. Anthony Montero, brilliant brother out of Philly, who will tell you that the disenchanted African-American, particularly Black male community in Philly, that many of them are going to sit this out, and as a result of that, it's going to cost Vice President Harris the election. I wonder if those disenchanted African-American males and females who are going to sit this out will now be offset by these angry Latinos, specifically Puerto Ricans. Again, this so-called Mr. Funny Man, I don't think at the end of the day, this is going to prove to be too funny. Harrison Walsey claimed that they're charting a new way forward to a future where everyone has the opportunity to get by. Not just get by, but get ahead. I'm sorry. Her articulation of the opportunity economy is so that you don't just get by, you get ahead. They're proposing, for example, $25,000 as a down payment assistance for first-time home buyers, small business entrepreneur assistance, tax cuts for the middle and working class. That's all great. That's all great. And it's damn sure needed. My question is, how's it going to be paid for? Again, I'm a policy guy. How's it going to be paid for? Has anyone publicly asked that question? How much is it going to cost? What's it going to do to the budget? What's it going to do to the deficit? And how are you going to pay for it? Because with billions of dollars going to Ukraine, 8 billion about 10 days ago, 8.7 billion about 10 days ago going to Israel, 600 million going to Taiwan. That's 17 billion in one day, last week or 10 days ago, to the settler colonial, 8.7 going to the Zionist settler colonial state called Israel. Trying to pick a war with China. Where's this money going to come from? She's made the promise, the campaign promise. My question is, if she wins, will you hold her accountable to deliver on that promise? To those who are so offended by the genocide being committed against the Palestinians, and rightfully so, many of those of you believe that the answer to that atrocity is a protest vote for Trump. This gets back to the third party question. I believe, my opinion, that by failing to develop, understand, and articulate our permanent interests and agendas, we are falling victim to the problem of binary politics, the simplest either or scenario. You're angry with Biden-Harris, the Biden-Harris administration, for backing, funding, participating in the genocide in Gaza. So you believe that the answer to that is a vote for Trump. To our Muslim brothers and Arab brothers and sisters who are rightfully appalled by these genocidal policies, I don't think your viable option is a protest vote for Trump. Because remember, his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, is articulating plans to turn Gaza into beachfront Mediterranean condos. And Jared Kushner is a key advisor to his father-in-law. So if by chance you vote for Trump, thinking you're voting for Trump as a protest against the Biden-Harris administration, I personally believe you're making a big mistake. Because yes, this is a two-party system, but there's also third-party candidates out there as well. You've got Dr. Cornel West and Dr. Melina Abdullah. You've got Dr. Jill Stein and Dr. Butch Ware, two examples from the Green Party. So if you're going to make a protest vote, then in my opinion, I believe if you cast a protest vote, think about third party. The real signal, in my opinion, if you want to really send a message, let the duopoly see a third party campaign get 20% of the vote. Let a third party get enough to qualify for public campaign funding. Let a third party get a significant enough vote to qualify to be on the debate stage. Can you imagine Dr. West on stage debating Donald Trump? Can you imagine Dr. West on stage debating Vice President Harris? Can you imagine Dr. Butch Ware on the stage debating J.D. Vance? Folks, I'm talking pea shooter at a gunfight. That's what you would be witnessing. And I'm not saying that Dr. West on stage against Kamala Harris. In fact, I'm wrong to put it in that kind of conflict scenario, because it's all about the best interest of the American people. It's not about protecting one person's image against and using another person to tarnish that image. That's not what this is about. Thank you, Sherry, for coming back and agreeing with me. This is about you. This is about America. This is about our country. This is about Social Security. In fact, to that point, let me give you a very simple example of this. We keep hearing that Social Security is in jeopardy, right? You've got George W. that wanted to privatize Social Security, which we know was just grand theft auto. Here's the solution. And you can do the math yourself. This one is so simple. A 10-year-old can figure it out. Right now, the Social Security contribution that comes out of your paycheck every month, if you have a paycheck, gets capped at, I think it's either $140,000 or $144,000. Every dollar you make after $140,000 or $144,000 is exempt from the Social Security payroll tax. You want to salvage Social Security, which, by the way, isn't really in jeopardy. But if you want to salvage Social Security, raise the ceiling on the Social Security payroll tax. Raise it to, I don't know, pick a number. Raise it to $500,000 of salary. Raise it to $1 million of salary. Raise it to $1.5 million of salary. If you're making $500,000 in salary, you can afford an additional 10%, 15%, or 10% on that, whatever the payroll tax is. I don't have it in front of me. And what you would be able to do by doing that, you would ensure the sustainability, that's not the word I was looking for, but anyway, sustainability of Social Security. You ready for this? Lower the retirement age. You could lower the retirement age. And don't send your money yet, because there's a bamboo steamer that comes with this deal. You could expand benefits, raise benefits. They right now are talking about what? Raising the retirement age to like 72. And what's the life expectancy of the average American? About 67 years. So now you got to work 5 years beyond your death. Does that make sense? No, not at all. That's a very simple fix, folks. The math is simple. Raise the Social Security ceiling from $140,000 or $144,000 to $1 million. If you make $1 million in salary, we're not talking about return on investments. We're not talking about all those other revenue generating elements in your stock or in your portfolio. Just salary. You could salvage Social Security. You could lower the retirement age. You could increase benefits. Why isn't Kamala Harris talking about that? Well, because as Sunray says, if we hold her accountable, they will send her the. Oh, that's not one. Oh, I'm sorry. It was J.J. Mars who says the American oligarchs will never allow it. Well, J.J. Mars, that's why I'm saying it's not about what the oligarchs will allow. It's about what you as American people and voters and constituents will demand, so that a candidate cannot come forward and win unless they commit to doing that. And then you have to ensure that the members of Congress understand if that doesn't happen, they no longer have jobs. See, I'm not going to concede this to the American oligarchs. If I were doing that, then I'm wasting my time I've wasted an hour and 6 minutes of my day talking to you. I could be playing golf. I could be a Shaladon right now on number 7, teeing off on number 7. It's beautiful outside, right? It's 80 degrees outside. So JJ, if I'm going to concede that to the oligarchs, then why have I been sitting here doing this? I'm about to fight, man. Oh, JJ, I don't know if you're male or female, so please forgive me. I'm about to fight. I'm about to struggle. I'm about kicking ass and taking names. I'm not throwing the towel in, because I'm going to succeed or die trying. The Powell memo, Sherry, what was the Powell memo and the chamber? Okay. Lewis Powell, former Supreme Court Justice. Before Lewis Powell was nominated and appointed to the Supreme Court, Lewis Powell was the chairman or president, I don't remember the title, of the National Chamber of Commerce. He was out of Richmond, Virginia. And Powell wrote what has now become known as the Powell Memo in, I want to say in the mid 70s. And the crux of the Powell Memo was corporate America. Remember, he was the chairman or the president of the National Chamber of Commerce. It was his position that corporate America had to get more involved in American politics, that corporate America had to invest more money into candidates, had to invest more money into parties, had to invest more money into the machinery. Sherry, thank you, 1972. Had to invest more money into the machinery of the American political process in order to ensure that their corporate interests prevailed in the legislative system. And so that's how you now wind up with, oh shoot, I'm drawing a blank on the Supreme Court case that now comes out and says that corporations are people too, and that corporations have interests and voices that should be allowed, and you can now contribute ungodly amounts of money into the American political system. You can donate corporations can donate all this money to candidates. Thank you, thank you, Zach. The Citizens United case. Thank you. That's how you wind up with the Citizens United case. And Sherry, I'm glad you no, I'm not talking about Elon Musk, JJ. I'm talking about Powell. So look at how long it took. It took from 72, I think this is right, to 2010 for the Citizens United case to be passed. However many years that is. See, they play it for the long game. Powell writes this memo in 72, gets a Supreme Court case validating that position in 2010. Look at how long it took. They play it for the long game. We play it, I wouldn't even say for the short game. We play it, we play it an inning. We're happy with an inning at a time. They're looking at series. So hopefully, Sherry, does that answer your question about the Powell memo and what has also become, well, some call it the Powell Doctrine, others associate the Powell Doctrine with General Colin Powell and the you break it, you own it thing. But anyway, do I think Trump and Harris are both fascists? Yes. 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 And how so? Because look at the industrialists that are actually controlling the policies. And what does Kamala Harris say? We are going to have the most, she didn't use the word dominant. I can't remember. Sherry, oh, yes, sir, I have a PhD. Well, you know what, Sherry, to that point, PhD, my son says, it means two things: piled higher and deeper, and it also means please help dad. Anyway, now what was I talking about? Oh, fascism. It's the corporate interests controlling policy and using the police force / military in order to support it domestically and internationally. And so I believe that Trump is just a more vocal fascist than Kamala Harris, but I believe that she's just as fascist as the rest of them. As Barack Obama was as well, as was George. I mean, I don't see how you get to the exalted position of president without being a fascist, because that's one of the bases of American foreign policy is fascism. So you can put maybe, okay. To those of you that are now up in arms, Wilmer, how can you call Kamala Harris a fascist? She's a kinder, gentler fascist. Remember, and a more attractive fascist. Remember George H.W. Bush and his kinder, gentler conservatism? Remember that? Well, we are now dealing with a kinder, gentler fascism. So let me look to wrap this up for now. Anybody but Trump, I believe, that whole mantra ignores the fact as a U.S. president that he's a functionary. A U.S. president is a functionary of the United States government. An American president is a functionary of the interests of the elite. Look at Trump's position on Venezuela. It was the same as the Biden administration. Both Democrat and Republican administrations have had policies that included U.S. interference in other Central American and South American countries. Trump's position on tax cuts and cuts to social programs builds upon tax policy and social policy cuts from previous administrations. Remember Bill Clinton and ending welfare as we know it? And remember Obama's failed grand bargain? Again, folks, I'm not talking with you now saying that any candidate is the right choice or the wrong choice. I'm merely asking you, what do we get for our loyalty? What do you get for your vote? Do you get more hope without substantive and systemic change? What do you get? By settling for the status quo through the willful ignorance of supporting a candidate that has a proven track record on issues that aren't in the best interest of the American people, that aren't in the best interest of the African American community. We, as Baldwin said, are merely making peace with mediocrity. Without substantive systemic change, are we believing that we are really what the white world calls a nigger? This should never become our reality. So, with that, let me say to all of you all that have invested the last hour and 15 minutes of your morning with me, with us, my phenomenal producer, Melody Graves. I would not be able to do any of this without her. Let me see. S1, all we can hope for is a president that will give us the softest landing for this dying empire. Create your own strategy to save you and your loved ones, as many others as you are able to do. You're absolutely right. Oh, right. Who do I think is going to win the election? Thank you for bringing me back to that. This is what I see. You ready? I believe that either at the end of Tuesday night or early Wednesday morning, the 47th president of the United States is going to be Kamala Harris. I believe it's going, and I've consulted with a former classmate of mine, Dr. Baruti Jahi, who's a brilliant brother, and I agree. The numbers will be around 293 Harris, 245 Trump. Remember, you need 270 to win. I don't even think Trump's going to win the popular vote. He got 75 million votes against Biden. I don't think he'll get 75 million this time. It could go to 319 Harris, because I think that she's going to win North Carolina, and I believe that she's going to win Arizona. So she could go as high as 319 or 320. This hate fest racist diatribe 2024 that he held in New York, I think did him incredible damage. And what he said yesterday about Liz Cheney, I think is going to do him incredible damage. Also, I don't believe that the polling numbers that we're seeing, I don't believe that the polling numbers are anywhere near accurate. I think if you look at the polls, I think you're being sold a pig in a poke. Remember, I forget the year, in the first Obama campaign, the polling and all of the analysts and everybody, lottie-dottie and everybody, was telling us that Mitt Romney was going to defeat Barack Obama and that Romney was going to win by 7 to 9 points. Didn't happen. Even election night, they were still talking about Romney, 7 to 9 point victory. Didn't happen. Their polling is skewed. Some of it is intentional. Some of it is inherent in the systemic nature of it. Let me go through these real quickly. Please tell you who, Doctor, please tell me this live will be uploaded. It will be, so you can watch it again. Jackie, thank you. Sandra believes Kamala will win as well. Trump wins with 300. Okay, Zach, we'll see. You say Trump wins with 300 plus. It might happen. Let's see. JJ, whoever wins will not be able to complete their 4-year term. I can't speak to that. I can't predict the future. My crystal ball right now, unfortunately, is in the shop. Sherry, I will not be voting for Harris or Trump. Okay. There are viable third parties out there. And when you think third party, you got to think long game. And which I think if you really want to send a message, if you really want to have a vote protest, let the elite see a significant increase in support for third parties. And I think that'll do this democracy an incredible service. Big C, hey, you want to thank me for my brilliant commentary? Oh, brilliant. You're too kind. I think you just need to get out more. You believe Harris will win. Okay. So with all that and a bag of chips, here's what I want to do. I got to thank you all so much for listening, for participating in the Connecting the Dots podcast, this live podcast. We are going live, and I hope to start it next week. But there'll be more posted on that one. Thank you again for listening to the Connecting the Dots podcast with me, Dr. Wilmer Leon. Stay tuned for new episodes, hopefully every day, Monday through Friday. Please follow and subscribe. Leave a review. Folks, we're going live. That costs. And it costs big. I need help. I need your help. Leave a review. Share the show. Follow me. Follow us. Again, without the wonderful, brilliant Melody Graves, I would just be sitting here talking to myself. You can follow us on social media. You can find all the links below in the show description. Remember that this is where the analysis of politics, culture, and history converge, because talk without analysis is just chatter. I don't chatter here. We don't chatter here on Connecting the Dots. Tomorrow, Saturday, my show, Inside the Issues with Wilmer Leon on Sirius XM 126 Urban View, 11 to 2. Got a great lineup for y'all tomorrow. Check it out. You'll be really interested and surprised. And folks, I'm going to see you again next time. Until then, I am Dr. Wilmer Leon. Have a great, great one. Peace. I'm out.
Connecting the Dots with Dr. Wilmer Leon, where the analysis of politics, culture, and history converge.